No, he didn't see that they complained. I mean, what did he see? What did they have to do?
Keep walking.
They had to walk with God in the wilderness for 40 years to prepare them to come into their gifts and callings. So what did they have to know first? Who their enemies were. Now, first they had to know who their God was. Okay? First they had to know who their God was. God did that when He delivered them. Guess what? He did it for you too. There isn't a soul here that doesn't believe in God, because God has done something powerful in every life here. How little or how great, He's done something for you that you know that God's real. Now He's saying, okay, now that we got that covered, let's move on.
That's where the fear comes
Okay, so Linda. Okay, now you said fear and insecurity. How does it manifest itself?
Well, I had a situation.
No, I don't want situation.
Okay.
How does fear and insecurity manifest itself? What do you do to try and cover that up? Okay, what else though?
Work.
What do you try to do with people when you're in the old man?
Criticize.
And control. She doesn't want to say it. It's like Alice, you know, when the word was heard that she was Rahab, she couldn't say that she was a... she couldn't say it. I'm a who, you know. Manipulation and control, Linda. Fear causes one to manipulate things their way. Insecurity, the flip side of that, is control. Do you see that? When you're insecure because you don't know what people are going to do. So the way you become secure in the world is you control them. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay, who else?
Exaltation.
Are you for you, Joe?
Yeah.
What are you saying?
Exaltation. Be exalted. Be somebody.
Good. Pride, rebellion, prestige. See? That's good. That's right on. And see, what does that cause? That causes you to put yourself into a position that God's never called you to be. Which causes you to be totally overcome by the devil because you put yourself in positions that you're not prepared or trained for. And so the enemy has a field day with you. Who else?
Right, when confusion.
Huh?
I'm impatient.
Minister of confusion.
Oh, I should have mentioned
You're
that.
confusing.
Come up and whisper that in your ear. No. But I was having problems, and then I put these things down, and it was wondering, I was going back into the, I think I've told you, going to the business world, so to speak, trying to do things.
Right.
But then
Performance.
giving it all up, say, okay, I can't do it, come home, but then you feel like a wimp. So it's the idea of giving everything up to the Lord, and who cares how you feel? You have to give it up to the Lord.
Performance to be accepted.
Yeah. And say, you don't need it.
Giving, all the time giving, never receiving. Always being in a position of control through giving.
Well, see, the authority gene was a big thing, you know, when I was in the hospital. That's, no, I had to keep after that. Then I got on to spiritual authority. And boy, that thing you read all the time, you know.
Good works.
Doesn't involve me.
Oh, but he's such a good man. He does so many things for everybody. He just, I'm not necessarily talking about
No,
you.
that's
I'm saying,
please. Go on.
who else? Who else knows their enemy? Unbelief. And what else? Religion. Religion. See? Thinking that what's going on in your heart, what you're thinking, you don't dare say because it's not right to say those things. That's the religious position. Oh no, we're not allowed to talk, we're not allowed to speak, we're not allowed to be honest, we're not allowed to be real people.
So where's this stuff?
Stuff it, right.
Right in the drawer.
Who else? Who else knows your enemy? Now why are we doing this? I don't, it's not that I'm trying to expose people. Believe me.
So that we can know.
You need to know who your enemy is. If you don't know your enemy, you'll never be free. And you might think, well, I'm free already. Jesus has set me free. From what?
I know I'm impatient.
From what does he set you free from? What is your testimony? What?
What I think I'm beginning to see first and foremost is fear and control.
You know what I got down for you?
Fear.
Self-protection and control. Exactly. You see your enemy. Who else?
Impatient.
Mine's striving and being a performer.
Okay. Vic, strife and idolatry.
He always misses idolatry. He'll never. I can't remind him when he's right.
She's up there, beating her.
He's writing them all down here. He says he forgot idolatry. He's got 6 or 7 listed here. He forgets the big one.
Just let me be strifeful. I don't want to be an idolater. Who else?
Mine is fear.
I guess he got it.
I'm gonna tackle you.
Okay, but you need to be a little more. What has been
Kiss.
religion? That's true, but what else?
The enemies of your soul.
Unbelief. Slothfulness.
Sorry, Margaret, it's not easy.
We don't make it easier.
Yeah. What, Davey?
I heard that.
You heard JB?
Silence, I have silence and inactivity for you. Inactivity, in other words, a hearer of the word and not a doer is an inactive person. He thinks that because he hears and agrees, that in fact fulfills doing. But that is not doing, that's deception. That's what the church is taught. Come to church on Sunday and Wednesday. Listen to the teaching and agree that it's true. So you go, yes, I agree, I read the Bible, yes. And we think that we're doers of the word because we agree. You're not a doer of the word because you agree. There's no virtue in agreeing and not doing. A man had 2 sons, he said, go into the field. The son said, yes, sir, I go, and didn't go. Was he a doer? No, he was an agreeer. He was an agreeer, not a doer. Anybody else?
What are my fears, Jimmy?
Now she's not telling me, she's asking me.
She wouldn't answer me. I figured I'm wrong.
wrong.
I'm listening to the Spirit this time anyway. Tell me to shut up. Well, I was.
Why do you ask?
You need to, Deb, I don't want to, just read the woman at the well.
Where's that at? And you
It's in the Bible.
Samaritan woman, read the whole Bible.
John chapter 4, just read it. Don't read it tonight, now, but just read it.
Well, I can take it.
Well, no, I want, you see, I'm not telling anybody here.
Well, I know.
Wait a minute, no, you don't know what I'm going to say.
I'm lost.
Well, you're not totally lost because we know where you are. Everyone who I have reflected their position to them, Deb,
Yeah,
knows it.
I did.
See, people accuse me of controlling people and manipulating people and all that. Well, the way you do that is you tell them something that they don't know and that they haven't heard and that they've not even thought in their mind. And you use that over them to control them. The true God always works through a position of confirmation. Whatever God speaks to us about in relationship to sin, we know and agree and understand in our hearts that what he is saying is true. You need some revelation from the Spirit as to what your enemy is before I tell you, so that when I tell you it's a word of confirmation, it's not a new word to you. That's mostly the way I work. There's been times when I've had to tell people because they won't search their hearts, they won't seek the Lord, so I have to tell them.
And we know it anyway.
But, well, when I tell you, you know it, but there have been times that I have told people things that they haven't even known what I've been talking about. I don't like to do that, but sometimes I have to for the sake of their soul.
But also, they don't search it out themselves, and
That's
they
right.
put you as God instead of searching it out for themselves.
Right, they wait around for me to tell them, well, if God's got a problem with me, Gene will come point the finger. And then when I do, you get upset with me.
Yeah, you get mad. So it's John 4.
Right, John 4. Anyway, we don't have to, you know, run this into the ground. But think about what your enemy is. You need to know who your enemy is.
What do you got for me?
I just said that, didn't I?
Germany.
Read John 4.
You have
You will be dropped, parachute
You have
into
to
Germany.
ask.
Yeah.
What?
You have to ask.
Well, what do you think, Mike? Who are the enemy?
He was afraid I was
I
going to.
battle covetousness, I
Okay.
battle legalism, I battle lack of love. It goes on and on.
Okay, well, that's good. But I've got covetousness, but there's I think that there's a common denominator to the other things that you mentioned, that if you see this,
See?
well, that's, okay, what, you got it. That's the gift God wants to bring forth in you is faith. What's the opposite of faith?
Covetousness.
Well,
Unbelief.
Well, to me, if you don't have faith that God will provide for you, then you want to hold on to stuff your own self.
well, hold on, but provide for yourself. So
Provide
what
for
is that? I've got self-discipline.
That's his sin.
Provision too?
Self-provision.
Self-discipline.
Golly.
You discipline your own life because you have no faith that if you follow some undisciplined wind,
Right.
which is the Spirit of God, there's no way that you could, be able to obtain the things in life and have the security that you need if you follow the wind as it blows. Which, by the way, Jesus said, those who are born again are like the wind.
Oh, you hear the wind?
You hear it and feel it when it blows, but you don't know where it's coming from next or where it's going. So is everyone who's born of the Spirit. He just told you, he just illustrated to you what the born again believer's like. He's like the wind. That's right, and you don't know where it's going next or where it's coming from. That's the born again believer. But that's not so with my Kugler. He knows where he's going, when he's going, how he's getting there, and how much it's going to cost.
And I know when you're late.
I was within the 20-minute rule tonight.
I promised to help him.
Oh, great, Joe, that's great.
Next summer, he's gonna pay my way to Europe and back
I
and
see.
take me all over.
Europe.
There goes his covetousness.
Right, and there comes your wanting to be somebody. So Mike's going to get free from his motivational sin and birth Joe's to be even bigger.
No, I offered to sleep on the floor.
Well, you're glad to get there.
He's gonna parachute.
Yeah,
Mike.
self-abasement. Now, where I want to go, and we're not going to go tonight, but I am so excited about where we're going with this, because where we are going within the next week or two is we're going to be able to see, probably some of us for the first time, the difference between the promise of God and the law of God. The promises of God came before the law. Therefore, the promises of God hold a higher standing of authority and preeminence than the law of God. And I'm going to take you into the scripture in the New Testament. I'm going to show you how we're bound under the law and why we're not free and why God can't affect His promises in our life because of the law which we are holding to. But we've got to see and recognize our enemy. There are many enemies, but there's an initial enemy. Now, what kept the children of Israel out of the promised land? What kept them out?
Unbelief and no faith.
Unbelief. They entered not because of what? Unbelief. What produced the unbelief?
All their little friends.
All
their friends.
All their friends, but rebellion to the direction and the leading of God through Moses, the man of God. And though God did many miracles, water from the rock, manna from heaven, healing of diseases, overcoming their enemies, all manner of miracles God did for them before they even got to the border. They sent the spies in. They brought back, do you know, it took 2 men and a pole between the 2 men to carry 1 cluster of grapes. You ever thought of that? It took 2 men and a pole between them to carry 1 cluster of grapes. These were big grapes. You think God was trying to show them the risk versus the reward factor? A man will risk much when there's much reward, won't he? Remember I gave you the illustration? Would you jump over 10 cars for $50? And of course everybody said no except Vic. He said I'd do it for nothing. But it shows where Vic's at.
I didn't say nothing.
If you couldn't ride a motorcycle and never rode a motorcycle in your life, would you attempt to jump over 10 cars for $50? Well, nobody would. Would you do it for $1 million?
No.
Well, some of us are not motivated by money, but there is a price. There's something. If your son were going to chop his head off unless you jumped the bike, would you do it? You probably would.
If you jumped the bike and got a husband, what'd you do?
20 cars.
Debbie, where is your mind?
You can put your hands down now. I'll do it.
Stay in your seats.
We have to see the women first.
Please hear this. Whether God does much or little to confirm His reality in your life, if you lightly esteem that, you will end up in unbelief. Whether God does mighty things, big things, or little things to reveal Himself to you, whether He does much or does little, whether He does miracles or whether He does the little things in your life to prove to you that He's real, whether He does big or little in your life, if you don't esteem what He's done, if you don't thank Him and are thankful for the working in your life that He decided to do to reveal Himself to you that He's real, you will end up in unbelief. You know, Brandon, I could ask you what are some of the things that God did for you when you would come visit us for the summer times here in Colorado? What are some of the miracles that you saw? What are some of the little things and some of the big things that God did? Are there a couple things that may come to your mind when I say that? What are some of the things that God did for you and Wade? That you prayed for and He answered your prayer? Can you remember anything just off the top of your head? That you guys prayed for and God miraculously provided for you? Remember when we used to live the summers in Rifle? At Scotty's place?
Oh, yeah. Bikes.
Bikes. I mean, brand new bikes. And I didn't pay for them. I mean, God provided them. What about when we ran out of money that time? And coming down the mountain, remember we were at the wilderness cabin? And it was Steve and you and Wade and me. Remember the wilderness cabin? You kids hated it because there was no lights and it was dark and there were bears. And on the way down the mountain, I said, you know, guys, we need a miracle because I don't have any money and we need about $50 for groceries to see us through this week before the program. Remember I was doing a program, that's when I jumped the motorcycle in front of the swimming pool?
Right.
Do you remember what happened that day? Remember we pulled into Scotty's place
Oh, yeah.
and the guy backed into my truck?
Yeah.
I was sitting in Scotty's and I was drinking coffee and the kids were outside playing and I'm sitting there and the secretary says, "Oh my gosh, he just backed into your pickup truck." And I was sitting there with a coffee cup and I told the kids, I said, "We need about $50. I said, "Now the reason I'm telling you, I don't know if you remember this, but I told Brandon and Wade, I said, the reason I'm telling you guys this is not because I'm afraid that we're not going to get it. I'm telling you this so when God provides $50, you guys will see that He cares for us and that we don't have to fear." That's what I told them. On the way down the mountain, that's what I told them, coming out of Rifle Creek. So I'm sitting on the desk with my back to the window, and the secretary goes, "Oh my gosh, he just backed into your truck." And I said, "Whose truck?" And she said, "Yours." I said, "How bad is it?" I didn't even want to look, you know. And I just drank my coffee. And she says, "I don't know, but he looks really flustered. He's coming in right now." And so, of course, my truck's going to jump for Jesus all over it, you know. And he comes in, he says, "Oh gosh," he says, "this is a terrible day," and he's just going on and on. He says, "I backed into your truck," and he says, "I don't know what to do, and I'm in a hurry." And I says, "Oh," he says, "I don't know." He says, "Come look at it." And so I said, "Hey, relax. It's okay." You know? He said, "You kill anybody?" Whoa. I said, "No." So we walked outside with my coffee cup, and I'm looking at the quarter panel of my truck, and there's just a little indentation by the back light. I mean, you can hardly see it. And I'm looking at it, and the guy says, "Look," he says, "I don't want to go through my insurance thing." He says, "Would you take $50? I said, "How about 75? I said, "Sure, I'll take $50. And then I told the kids, and I told Steve, and I told Scott, and we went down, we bought groceries, we back up to the cabin, we lived for the rest of the week. I had gone in the hole $960 some promoting this evangelistic program. I mean, a full page ad and then a half page ad the next week, and then printing and all the stuff that I had to do, and I just charged everything. And I had no charge card. I just, you know, I knew I was supposed to be there, and I knew I was supposed to do the jump, and I knew, so I just, and I had a church support me. It was there, you know, they weren't supporting me, but. And by the time the program was over, I had over $900 in my fat little grubby hand. It just came in woefully. We didn't take an offering. Over 1,500 people showed up. We preached the gospel. The sheriff that used to chase me around town when I was doing wheelies as a drunk in town was blocking off the street for me so I could jump my motorcycle in the park. And he was sitting there shaking his head thinking, why am I doing this for this guy? But I mean, God really came through for us. So I mean, and I don't forget those things. I value those things. And I draw